Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Boldly Going. It is I, Merlin, sometimes known as Joe. I've got the film fanatics here with me. Got Dan over here.
Hey.
Got Justin over there.
How's it going?
And today we're going back to TOS to talk about one of the classics, one of the few episodes that directly continues continuity, and the two-parter, The Menagerie. Now, I wonder who's going to do this one. You know, I think that I'm going to give this one to Dan.
Okay.
Now, I'd imagine since this series of episodes is half of another 20 you've watched already, the synopsis shouldn't be too difficult.
True. Yeah, I don't even really synopsize the other part. But, yeah, this is the only two-parter in TOS history anyway. There's obviously some classics in Next Gen and some of the other series. But, okay. So in this episode, The Menagerie, which heavily lifts from the original pilot, The Cage, which we went over for our very first episode of Boldly Going, the Enterprise gets hijacked by Spock, leaving Kirk behind as former Captain Christopher Pike, which we saw in The Cage, who is recently crippled, is now on board. He heads to Talos 4,
Correct.
A forbidden planet, since Pike was there 13 years earlier in The Cage, and Spock gets court-martialed once Kirk and crew intercept the Enterprise.
Classic court drama for you, Dan. Now you love those.
Very classic. Spock has a video feed, however, of Pike's capture and imprisonment by Talos 4. So once Kirk sees the Cage footage, he sort of understands what Spock's plan was a little bit more. And then basically part 2 is the Cage all over again in, vignettes, and then we sort of go back and forth to Kirk and Spock, but mostly it's the Cage played over again. Now, obviously, there were reasons for this.
True.
The budget constraints were, getting a little hard for Roddenberry to figure out, and the time constraints as well. So they had these deadlines that they were missing. So Roddenberry came up with the idea, hey, we've got this pilot. NBC liked it, but they thought it was a little too heady at the time.
No one's really seen it.
No, yeah, and nobody's seen it at that point. Yeah, it didn't run on TV for decades.
True.
After that. So why don't we put this in and make it part of the canon? And that's what they did, which I think worked. I mean, I think it's not the best episode we've seen. The Cage, as a standalone episode, had its own positives and negatives, which we've discussed. But I think sort of, framing it in this way. Now, since I've seen The Cage, I know that this was an existing episode and they just built around it, sort of like a flashback episode that another series might do. But if I were unaware that The Cage even existed, if I was watching this in the 60s, I think I would have been pretty impressed with, hey, cool, there's another captain that existed before Kirk. What's his story? Here's what happened to him. I thought the makeup was pretty decent in this episode. And I thought the Kirk and Spock dynamic was very interesting because you have Kirk basically putting Spock's head on the chopping block. And it was quite intense. I mean, obviously, we all know that, Spock lives. But, it was interesting to see how that was going to progress. So, I liked this episode. It's a B+.
Good. Justine. What do you think about the
I was kind of hoping I was going to be going next on this one, but that's okay.
You always go.
I always go last on both.
Yeah,
no, that's fine.
We're always
that's
the
fine.
first.
I always get the final word with Trek.
All right. I guess that's fair. No. Reviewing what I'm going to just slowly call Spock Goes Bananas.
Okay.
I got to approach this from two separate angles, and I was really, really, really trying to find a way to split the difference between those two angles. The first is viewing this like someone watching Star Trek in the 1960s would view it. It was 60s, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, just want to double
Good
check.
job. We've only been doing this show for 5 months.
Hey.
All right.
I just want to make sure I got my facts straight.
Very good.
But and the second, in terms of watching it as a contemporary viewer, obviously we know things that they wouldn't, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the biggest problem for me. I really liked Pike, so the fact that they reduce him to being horribly crippled right after the events of The Cage is like, no, why? And
Well, it's not right after.
well, you know what I mean.
Okay.
Following years later, being my point. But for me, this episode sort of felt like the Star Trek equivalent of when America decided to bring over Gojira and we got Godzilla King of Monsters, and we just basically hacked up an already great movie and inserted a random person in. all the magic that was apparent in that original entity was really absent, and it got kind of dry, and I felt like that really pulled it down for me. The overall stakes of the episode I kind of appreciate, but when part 2 basically descends into let's just show the cage again, I feel like it completely and utterly loses its momentum. Everything that was established in the first episode basically becomes a, like, here's a little thing here, here's a little thing here, and I don't think the stakes continue to drive the story forward. I think it really becomes stagnant. I think that that dynamic where Kirk is really left with this big dilemma, which should be a big deal, kind of feels watered down by the end of it. For me, this was just really... I mean, I'm glad they found a way to run the pilot. I'm glad they found a way to make it exist, even though I really did not feel okay with the way they chose to wrap things up with it. But for me, this is just a shoddy way to introduce it. I leave it with a C-.
Ooh.
Wow.
Pretty harsh.
Big difference.
Very big. Well, I think this is a pretty classic episode. I will admit it's not one of my favorites. I do think that, showing the cage again when I was able to see the cage first as a younger viewer, with good old VHSs.
Well, true.
That hurt it for me. I think as far as the court case goes, I think there are some good stakes. I think the Spock Kirk dynamic is very good, very compelling.
I think it's intense.
I think the court stuff is good. I like it when Star Trek does the court martial stuff because it's not that often in the early days, but when it happens, it's pretty good. In fact, there's an episode called Court Martial, which is all that.
Oh.
So look forward to that. But for this one, I think, Justin, look at this episode like a question and an answer. You don't really know exactly what the motivations are for Spock, and then you really get a lot of compelling court evidence. Like, here's video footage, which they conspicuously have, that's well shot in a cinematic fashion.
I was going to say.
But Star Trek does that all the time. So, in a way, I think that kind of works.
Maybe in the 2300s, who knows what kind of technology. I mean,
yeah.
We can record things pretty good on our phones now.
I got you. No,
200 years.
Like I said,
we'll say.
It's not too bad. But yeah, that's the way I look at it. So, yeah, you have to look at it from their perspective. I think back then it would have been a great way to show Pike's character. And I kind of like the more tragic element with it as well, and it kind of gets resolved. We get to see Pike again, and it is kind of sad, but I don't think it was meant to be insulting for the character. I just thought it was the direction they decided to take it in a darker one. And it was Roddenberry heavily involved in this one, so...
Yeah, he wrote it.
So this is a baby. It really is. I don't think it's perfect, but I still think it stands up pretty well for what it is. I leave it with a B.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a B, knowing that we've already seen the cage. But, I'm upping it that little bit just because I think for the time it was originally on, I think people were probably like, oh my god, like, what, Captain Pike, like, what's going on?
They probably were blown away. It's good writing, don't get me wrong, it is for the most part. But I do think Justin's right about the momentum being lost a little. I don't know if it would be quite as harsh on it, though, because I think it stands as a pretty good story as it is.
I do, too.
Well, I mean, like, in part 1, it does a good job of establishing it. Then part 2, it's just barely sprinkled in. Like, I think the, like, present-day stuff, I put in quotes, is just maybe 5-10 minutes in a 40-minute episode. Like, there are ways to split the difference here, guys. And I don't understand.
What, to share some of the cage in part 1 and some of it in part 2, rather than all of part 2 being about the cage?
Yeah, like, not just rerunning the entirety of the cage again, like...
Right, but again, at the time it came out, it wasn't a rerun. It was brand new.
That's true.
No, but I'm saying, like...
Classic Back to the Future style. What's a rerun?
But still keep the... Not a bad reference. But no. But no, like, still keeping the central story intact. Like, there were a few moments where it was like, okay, this is the cage. It's a great, engaging episode. Oh, wait, there's still the square case. What's going on with that again? Oh, okay, Spock went rogue-ish, except not really. This is nice. I kind of wish
Justin, look at it this way. Like I said, overwhelming court evidence. I mean, here's the point. This is what happened. This is why Spock did this. There's no way we can, accuse him now. He's fine. So there you go. It's kind of
the only way he lives.
Yeah, I mean, I guess...
Even, like, 10, 11 minutes from the end of the episode, they're ready to still murder him.
I think that's pretty intense, as it is.
No, it's intense, but it's like we kind of still lose that momentum of what was going on with the establishment of this story to me.
All right.
Look, I hate a flashback episode as much as anybody, But
Well,
to the 60s audience, this was not a flashback episode. So I can't really take too many points off for
honestly,
us having already seen it.
for Trek, because
I do like the pilot.
Most seasons have that clip show episode.
Most shows do.
This is probably one of the more creative ways they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to give them points for that.
Yeah, I liked it.
But yeah, that's wrapping up this, guys. So please let us know what you thought about the Menagerie and or the Cage. We talked about that earlier. We're going to be going back to Next Gen soon, and I could swear we're getting to one I like. I swear it.
It's got to be coming up someday.
Don't jinx it.
And I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily good, but I might like it.
Okay.
So that's something.
Okay.
There you
guess
go.
That's good.
I liked a couple Next Gens.
Yeah, a couple. Out of like 20.
Out of the 12 or so we've
The
done,
last one was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. But, there are some good ones sprinkled in there we'll be getting to. And we'll continue on. So, yeah, guys, we got great things coming to this channel. And check out Film Fanatics too. Everybody say goodbye.
See you later.
Till the next time.